Meeting Mouse Eye. Hello everyone, welcome to Drawing Expressions. I'm Parz. Okay, so before we get into the meat of today's video, let me first run through a couple of things that I like to start with on any given video. So first thing is that guidelines bend. We only operate on guidelines. There are no fixed rules. So please keep that in mind. If something doesn't work for you that I'm talking about, don't use it. If you're doing something that I don't talk about, go ahead, use it, and shoot me a note that that's what you're doing, because I like to learn new skills, new techniques. This is divided into a planner and a pantser section. The planner section is going to be all about how I wrote the first episode where we have a rest period, and we'll get into that in just a minute. And then the pantser is going to bring up some discussion items from this experience. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, how about we do a little bit of breathe and stretch? So I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath in with me. So before we do that, sit up straight, make sure you're going to have a nice clear airway. Okay, here we go. Breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Deep breath in. Little stretch. Yeah, here's the stretch part. And exhale. Good. And do anybody any other little stretches that make sense to you in this moment? There we go. Alrighty. Hands are ready, mind is ready, body ready. Okay, here we go. So the past 3 episodes that we have done, or the past 3 videos, I should say, I shouldn't say episodes. The past 3 videos have gone into depth with why I'm writing using a JSRPG, and Apothecaria being that specific one. The last video did an example week, the first week of spring, so it's the first episode ever with my witch, who's curing somebody. There was a prologue to kind of set things up. And this week is going to be our first rest period. So I explained in the prior video, but I'll, quick little thing here, is that each week is broken up into 2 bits. The first bit is where you are going to have someone show up with an ailment, and you make the potion and all the interactions that go on with that. The second week, or the second part to the week, is where you have some downtime. And so how do we go about writing that? I think it's kind of an interesting thing to talk about. I'll definitely read mine here towards the end. And then, yeah, we'll just kind of see where everything goes. So how I use Apothecaria to write the rest episodes, not the rest of, just the rest, right? The part where a witch gets to, if she opts to, kick her feet up, sit back, do whatever it is that she's choosing to do, because she does not have a patient right there demanding her time. Okay, so what do we have as tools for writing for the week, or at this particular episode? I'm just going to come over here real quick. So it does get a little bit confused. It can get a little bit confusing where you're talking about an episode versus a week. Is it a heal week or a potion week? Is it a rest? So be kind to yourself as you're working through the terminology, just to make sure that everything is straight up in your head, because otherwise it gets really confusing really fast, and then it's no fun anymore. Okay, so I'm going to come back, share my screen. Okay, so how I use Apothecaria to write these rest episodes. Okay, so we have the guidebook. We're going to end up with a prompt or 2. Now, the the prompts that we had in the healing, the potion making episode, you've got the prompt, which is what's the ailment. You've got prompts that are what are the reagents. Excuse me. You've got prompts surrounding where are they located. You have right. So you've got location prompts for like when you arrive at any given area to go and do your collecting of reagents. So there's an awful lot of prompts that come up that can help move a story forward. The rest period, fewer prompts. If you choose to hang out in your hammock at your little witch's cottage, the number of prompts you are going to have is 0. So there's little to no help if that is what you choose to do. If you want to go off to some place and explore, then you start to get a prompt or two to kind of help move things along. So my suggestion for your first rest period is to not hang out at the cottage. Get comfortable having fewer prompts and using more of the imagination to fill in the gaps. So let's go back to the list here. So, okay, so we've got the guidebook, a prompt or two, a location or two. So maybe. What's been written before? Now, since we are in the first episode where we are having rest, still don't have a lot that's been written, but we do have a little bit, right? We have the prologue and we have that potion that we made last episode. So we can start to incorporate ideas and other types, like the feeling, the tone. If we know that our witch is a bit headstrong, which mine is, we can carry that theme through, and we don't want to have it terminate suddenly. If she suddenly turns into like someone who's a bit more of a easygoing, less headstrong, for lack of a better term in this moment, we want to have a reason why. So we want to look for those opportunities if we want to sort of move things in a particular direction. Okay, so that's that. And then the last bit, and by far the biggest bit on a rest episode, is going to be the imagination. Because again, there's fewer prompts that are going to be pushing things along. So there's a lot more room to just kind of play and let your mind go and work it all out. And then, of course, the last key thing is fleshing it all out. It's not enough to know what it is that you want to do. It really depends on how you express it. What happened? What do you put on the page? How do you let people know that, you being the first reader, how do you go back and reread what it is that happened and the reasons why? Okay, so I'm going to move my screen just a little bit. So I'm going to come back to sharing my screen again. So my first thoughts as I was getting ready to write this rest episode. So this is my first entry for rest time, right? We talked about that. There's no overriding need to cure someone, so there's a lot of space for our witch to do some things. So what do we have? So we have, she's still a very young and inexperienced witch, and at this point, we still don't know that she's a she. I'm saying she because she does get identified as she in a subsequent and upcoming episode. I think it's within 2. So she's only been to the town once and for a short while, so she can explore some locations, right? So thinking about that for a second, I wrote her as someone who is not from these parts. And so she needs to learn what's in the town. She needs to learn what's around the town, right? And there can be anything, right? That's sort of there because this is a magical place. Now, I've kind of kept things pretty mundane so far with my writing. Really, it's just the town itself. And we're going to have a re-examination of what that town is, and we're going to get into that. And that's really, what we're working with. Now, if you were writing a witch or a character who is from High Rannoc and who knows it well, there's no need to go explore. These things are already known, right? But for me, these are all things that are happening for the first time. Again, this calls back to points that I was making for the prologue episode, where she gets to explore everything, and so as I get to know a particular area and she gets to know a particular area, we get to have those same reactions. If she's saying wow about discovering something, I get to say wow. If I get to say wow about an attitude of somebody or whatever, something that gets discovered, she gets to say wow, right? So it kind of works back and forth. So that is the nature of how I am writing this particular young and inexperienced witch. Okay, so we're going to have her explore some locations. When we explore locations, we will get location prompts. The prompts, they don't just apply to the places where we collect the reagents, the standard, the forest and the mountain and the loch and blah blah blah. The village also has prompts, and so when we go to the village, be aware that you have a prompt to work through, or more, right? Depending on the number of prompts you choose to use. I'm going prompt light, because I want to use a single prompt as a springboard into lots and lots of imagination. Other people may want more prompts so that they don't have to, apply so much imagination into it, right? If the prompts can help you more guide the story, then okay, fine. I prefer to have more room for imagination, so I'm going to use fewer prompts. Okay, so we get location prompts. We've had one person cured of being frogified, i.e. lip warts, and we've been paid 20 silver. And we know that she was thrilled to receive her 20 silver. So she's feeling a little bit rich right now. So we get to explore how far will 20 silver carry you in the land of High Rannoc and Apothecaria. And the last thing is we can take the opportunity to summon a familiar. And in fact, most of the rest of the explanation for this episode is going to center on the familiar, because I think the familiar is it's something that is going to really help drive your story forward. Because now it's not just you who's operating in the world, it's you and sort of your maybe like an alter ego, or a someone who's going to be doing something contrary to what exactly what it is that you want to do. I mean, if all you're doing is saying, hey, my familiar Rob, I'd like to go swimming in Meltwater Loch, and the familiar Rob says, okay, and that's it. Not very interesting, not very fun. What if Rob mentions, oh, there is this sea monster that lives in there that you need to watch out for? All right, now you got my attention, right? So the familiar can provide different avenues for exploration. The familiar can provide different ways to have dialogue and pass ideas back and forth. The familiar can be a very, very good storytelling character. Okay, so let us move into next bits. So I showed off my journal prompt page last time, so I thought I would do it again this time. There we go. So prompts up on top. I like to use a different color fountain pen for the prompts. For the writing, I use my fog gray and whatever the other one is. I don't even remember. But I have a bunch of these little Pilot Petites, and it's just filled with bright, colorful inks, and they're just a delight to use. And I just, reach into the bag, as I've got a few of them, and those are even less expensive than my tiger's eye, which is inexpensive anyway. So it's fun. And my lovely lady love, who enjoys getting her fingers dirty, playing with fountain pen ink, can change them out at will, and I gleefully watch from the side as she gets her hands dirty and I don't. Okay. Back to my prompt page. So I've laid out, so the top bit, the top, say, fourth, is just sort of laying out the basics. So we're going to go to the location that is where we're going to summon our familiar. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. And then I want to go to town, all right? And that was the other sort of element of being a new witch in this area, that we want to just explore the town. And I want to go shopping. I've got 20 silver. It's clinking around in my pocket. I want to go shopping. And then, yeah, searching for reagents. Okay, so those are sort of the three basic ideas. And then everything below that is the details. What happened when I pulled cards and whatnot. And if you can read that, all the more power to you. Yeah, but that is in essence how things get laid out, and then the journaling part where I take all those notes and then flesh it into the full story. Okay. So because getting a familiar is such a big deal, I think, I want to spend a little bit of time about how you can get one. And also, I want to talk, yeah, you're starting to see the smile of, oh yeah, and there's this other idea I wanted to bring up. So when I was getting my familiar, there were some things that were going on in terms of my expectations and whatnot. And so it's sort of fun that I have written all of that in as well. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, right after I have a little bit of fortification. Okay. So here we go, share the screen. Okay, so the getting the familiar. So this top bit is from the book written by the old witch. So as a novice witch, you probably don't have a familiar yet, but seeing as you've been thrust into this, I recommend you get one soon. And I'm going to reiterate, I think so too. So that's why I'm doing this on the first rest period. Okay, so either find one, as many of us do, adopt one from the shelter, or perform the calling, which I'll detail below. You may choose what form your familiar takes, or you may draw randomly from the choices below. Remember, this is a magical world, so don't be afraid to make your familiar wondrous if you want to. Don't be afraid to make your familiar wondrous if you want to. So you've gotten permission, basically, from the guidebook itself, that you can go in and just make your familiar whatever it is that you want it to be. And that's perfectly fine and okay. And so as I thought about it, even before I got into the details of getting a familiar, I was thinking, what would be really cool? Like a small dragon, or a wisp, or some sort of, ethereal something or other, the something, that would just be like, massively like, wow, I can't believe I've got this. This is kind of really cool. Okay, so familiar, we have the form, right? And that's what this is referring to. The other part of it is its usefulness. What ability does that familiar have? What advantage does it give to you as you are going about and doing your potion making? And there are a bunch of different abilities that your familiar can be bestowed with. And both the form and the usefulness can be determined randomly. So if you want to go through the random route, you can, and I did, because I thought it would be more fun. Now, when I was thinking about the familiar, the form, and I thought, okay, it'd be cool to have a small dragon or whatever, what would be really funny? Well, what would be really funny would be like a giant cow, and trying to just maneuver with this, cow. How hysterical would that be as you're walking through town with a cow and it's your familiar, right? And you're talking to the cow's talking back. I just thought it'd be a hysterical blast. But I still chose to go random. Yeah. Okay. More on that in a minute. Okay, so back to here. So the calling ritual. So you head out into nature to whichever locale you feel most comfortable in and create a circle of stones and flowers. You put your magic into them and sit in the center. In time, you will hear a voice calling you, answer it, and guide your familiar to you. Write about this ritual in your journal. Straightforward enough. Okay. So let's look at the possibilities on the random for the form of your familiar. So it goes all the way from ace to king, again because we're using playing cards, starting at rodent and then raptor, amphibian, canid, and all the way through to some sort of mythical, magical something or mythical something. Basically everything in the world is listed here, and then you're just really selecting the category. So if you got like the 8 insect, right? There's suggestions of spider, beetle, moth. It can be any insect. It could be a praying mantis. It could be anything, right? So you still have a lot of choice. If you go random, you're just going to get like a rough classification, and then beyond that, it's your call as to what they're going to be, and then like color and personality and all that kind of stuff. So that is the form. Now the usefulness. Okay, so here is the table for all of the different bits of usefulness, right? What little powers do we have? We, again, all the way from ace until king. I know some of it's buried behind the number counter. So from ace, we have the forager, where it just helps to locate your reagents, all the way to the queen king, which is just pick one, or choose a tool, and then somehow your familiar provides it. And we'll get into tools and whatnot in a future episode. Okay. So there we go. So those are the random tables for getting the familiar, and now we get to find out. Now we get to find out what it is that happened. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. So getting my familiar, I thought about all the possibilities. So I've mentioned this already. So something amazingly cool, like a ghostly wisp or a small dragon. Something funny would be like something big, like an elephant or a cow. But I wanted to give random chance an opportunity to surprise me, and oh boy, did it. Okay, I drew an ace. I got a rodent. Not what I was expecting. Okay, rodent. Awesome. So what power will my rodent have? Drew a 7. It goes and looks at things. So the specifics behind the 7, it says independent, once per foraging, so once per time that you're out and about. You can send your familiar to another locale, draw a card to see what they find. They do not trigger events. Basically, they just go out and they see stuff and they come back and they tell you. Okay, a rodent who goes and looks at things. Not what I was expecting at all. And man, when I drew that, I was aghast. I was still laughing. How can we take this and spin it and make it work? And what I did, so here I'm just going to come back to the thing here. So a mouse that looks at things. What did I do to get this combination of small and relatively useless? Well, make it part of the story. So I did. And man, am I glad I did, because it makes for just such an amazing piece of story. Okay. So aside from getting the familiar, I'm just going to bring it back up here, Rick. The other thing that I wanted to do was explore the town. And there are 4 named places here. I'm just going to come back here. There are 4 named places inside the guidebook for High Rannoc. Now, as a creative writer, you could say, okay, well, there's these 4 named places, but they can just represent, you know, just 4 of many things, right? And we can start to populate High Rannoc with all sorts of stuff. I opted to go with an approach that said there's 4 named things in here, and 2 of them are magical places that I have sitting outside like the city wall. Because it's a very small town, and maybe it once was grand, right? The name High Rannoc. It sounds high and mighty, but you know, High Rannoc is anything but now. So I deliberately kept it to these 4, and over time I'm sure I will write more in, but for right now, this first week of spring, this first year, 4 named locations. So I'm going to go to the 2 that are inside the city walls: the store, which is called Bits and Bobs, and the tavern. Now, in the store, we're going to quickly realize that the price tag on pretty much everything is way beyond 20 silver. And in the tavern is a place where one thing that can happen is you can hire an adventurer from there. So for the cost of 10 silver, you can have them accompany you, and they can negate one one location prompt. Now, if you're playing something where there's a lot of prompts going on, this can be really, really helpful. For the way that we're playing, Alicia and I, where it's very prompt light, less helpful. So including this into the story may be a little bit more of a challenge, but we're going to see. Anyways, that is what is written into the guidebook. And of course, with exploring the town, we also have the location prompt. And, you know, there's a whole host of things that can happen with that. So, taking it all together, yeah, that was all the bits. So, at this point, I'm going to read you what it is that I ended up with. So, meeting Mouse Eye. After curing Albert and having a bit of a rest, most especially getting over falling into that horrid cell, you'd think someone would have done a better job of shoring up the roof so as to not let prisoners have a way out. Granted, a hole in the roof, but still. Anyway, with the witch gone, but people still needing her services, I decided to settle in and do what I can. And yes, the allure of making some coin is fabulous, but really my goal now is to do a good job so that when, not if, the old witch returns, she'll be appreciative of my efforts and will train me up. Meanwhile, I have her book and whatever notes, bits, and doodads I can find. Which is all fine and good, but I do need wood for the fire, and food to eat, and laundry to do, and... I was busy for a few days just getting things back to a maintained level. As I worked, I thought about something the book mentioned, a familiar. I'm not entirely sure what it is that a familiar is, other than some sort of helpful creature who could help me. And while I didn't want to get ahead of myself again, I also thought that the fact that I just cured my first patient and that I intended to continue should be enough justification to put it out there and so see if there was a familiar who would want to work with me. Brief break. The book said I should go to a location where I felt most in line with the energy. The forest is where I dwelled all my life, so to the forest of Glimmerwood Grove I went. Having learned my lesson of being mindful of my surroundings, particularly where I'm walking, I tried to pay attention. But my mind wandered. I thought about the wish I'd make before calling for my familiar, and I'd wondered who'd answer the call, and I wondered how they'd be able to help me, and I wondered, "Lost in thought, are ya?" The voice, old and gravelly, cut through my musings. "Sorry, what?" Standing there, plain as day, stood an elderly gentleman. "I've been seeing smoke rising from the old witch's cottage, but I know she's not there. You moved in?" While I could have been distressed about the question, I decided to just admit it. "Yes, for now anyway. It seems someone needs to be the local witch until she returns." He grunted. Knew her stuff, she did. Had that place full of plants and animals and who knows what else. Could cure the most horrendous of things. By the look of you, I'd say you can barely maintain good health, let alone cure ill. Hopefully, though, you won't be quite so touchy about all the dumb ways people find to injure themselves." "Well, I did just cure someone who'd been frogified." "Ah, that'd be the flywheel boy. Damn fool, in my opinion, kissing frogs and dreaming of living in castles and all that royal living instead of helping at the mill. So where you headed?" I didn't see any harm in revealing it, so I told him. He grunted in reply. "Plenty of things growing in the grove. Good luck in your hunt." And here's where I may have made a mistake. I'm certainly going to hunt for ingredients, but first I'm going to summon a familiar. I thought it'd sound impressive. It wasn't taken that way. "A familiar, huh? What's that, some sort of something what does your work for you? Sounds to me like another version of kissing frogs, if you take my meaning." I think I must have recoiled a bit before responding, but I didn't get the chance. "Well, good luck to you. Don't let me keep you." And with that, he walked off. Kissing a... I'm not trying to... Am I? Is this a way to avoid work? To be less than I should be? These thoughts and more swirled in my head as my legs carried me to a spot in a clearing in the grove. So, should I do this? Should I ask for help? Should I look more like a real witch by having a familiar? Yes, I decided. Yes, I should. I deserve one, a helpful one, a giant one, a good one. I must admit that I was far less tranquil than I wanted to be, and probably should have been, but I was bound and determined to see this through. After not gently kinda throwing stones into a circle of not placing more tossing flowers into the mix, I kind of not sat more threw my butt onto the ground and then began. I felt, I magicked, I sang harsher than was pleasant, felt aggrieved, thought, I should have waited to calm down and get my center back. But I didn't. Eventually, I did hear a voice. It was tiny, soft, barely there, but I heard it. Something had responded. I asked it to show itself. From behind a small boundary of weeds peeked out a mouse. Now, I'm not one to get squeamish about mice, but when you're dreaming of magnificent creatures, let's just say mouse is towards the bottom of the list. Hi? Not the best way to start things, admittedly. I'd just summoned. I should have been celebrating. And in its big, mousy eyes, I could see the hurt. I tried again. Hi, I'm glad you answered my call. What can I call you? It stood up on its hind legs before speaking. There were a lot of creatures who followed you, all hoping to be your familiar, but they got scared away as you threw rocks and flowers around. I stayed and watched, and now I'm here. Ah, really not a good start. But I can try to salvage this. I'm really sorry. I was upset and I didn't honor the magic. Please forgive me. I do hope we can work together. Those eyes, so big on such a small creature. His name just seemed to come from them. Can I call you Mousei? He shrugged. Sure. With a twitch of whiskers, he looked around. What are we up to? Let's gather some things. Okay. And with that, we started looking for useful items. By which I mean I was looking for plants, and Mousei watched me. Why don't you go over there and pick some things? Must I? He asked. I had no idea how to answer that, so I just went with, it'd be great if you did. Okay, he said. After I'd harvested some wild rose and coffee cap, he eventually came out from the undergrowth and said, "I found some songberries." "Great, did you bring them?" "No, but I can take you to them." Less than helpful, but okay. Off we trudged. As we went along, I said, "You could have brought them to me." "Oh, I couldn't do that. I'm good at watching, and I have an amazing memory, but I don't carry things. Sorry." Right. Okay, well, I guess I can work with this. I guess. Aloud, I said, "Let's go to town. I haven't been there, really, and I think knowing what's there will help me in the future." Mouse-Eye just shrugged. Going back to High Rannoc this second time was a very different experience over the first. When I'd been in the cart, it had seemed big and daunting. This time, though, it seemed a bit smaller. The outer wall wasn't really a wall. It was more like rotting timbers surrounding several buildings, some houses, some shops, and one recently vacated, by me, school. I decided to visit a shop. I had 20 silver in my pocket, courtesy of my newfound potion-making abilities, and I thought I'd look into a thing or two to spruce up the cottage. Or maybe I could splurge on an ingredient or two and get ahead of what was sure to become a steady stream of patients. And so I went to the shop with a sign out front showing items being put into a sack. It had to be a general store. I walked in, and a small bell rang, alerting the proprietor of a potential customer entering the shop. Turns out it's called Bits and Bobs. The bits being what they sell, a bit of this and a bit of that, and the Bobs being the name of the people running the shop through several generations. This Bob was very nice, very helpful, and had plenty of bits for someone to buy. However, most of them are priced beyond anything I'll ever be able to afford. Turns out 20 silver isn't quite the fortune I thought it was. I must have spent a couple of hours looking at his stock and trying to convince myself that I'm not a pauper, despite being unable to afford anything. Bob was very understanding and I think a bit pitying as well. He wished me well and assured me he'd be happy to help me whenever I came back. Where Mouse-Eye was all that time, I didn't know. With that visit a bust, I thought I'd go to the tavern and have a bit of something while considering what to do next. It's called the Copper Fox Tavern. This place, too, was quite empty but for the proprietor. His name wasn't Copper or Fox, but instead Fusillade. "Call me Fussy, 'cause I am where quality is concerned." He said the name was given to him because of his habit of doing things over and over again until he got the result he wanted. Anyway, he introduced himself and we chatted briefly, me talking about settling into the witch's cottage and his listening, when this young bravo walked in, apparently, or so Mouse-Eye told me afterward. The two exchanged knowing looks, and then the newcomer approached me. Which is to say, he less walked than strutted over, leaned up against my table, and before I had an idea of what was going on, he began what could only be considered his sales pitch. "Roger Rogerson at your service. Monsters slain, dungeons delved, incredible feats feated." Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Fussy close his eyes and shake his head. Clearly, Roger's rehearsing of his pitch had been aided by Fussy, and yet it still didn't flow. I smiled back politely. "Why would I need your services, sir?" I thought it best to be very polite. A quick look of confusion flashed on his face and then left as he found the answer. "Word has it you've moved into the witch's cottage, and with you being young, inexperienced, and new to the area, I figured you'll want a stout companion as you gather ingredients." I must admit, that sounded attractive. Thoughts of the hollowness of Hero's Hollow resounded in my memory. I asked his price. "I'm only a junior," he started, then stuttered to a stop with the frantic waving of Fussy's hands. 10 silver, and it's a big discount just for you." 10 silver? Half my amount earned on a potion? Oh, how far 20 silver doesn't go. I think, even though I tried not to react, that he caught my inward sense of sticker shock. He started again. "Well, I suppose I could." More frantic waving of Fussy's hands led to, take a deposit for future services?" I tried to continue smiling. Thanks, I'll keep you in mind whenever I go off foraging. And then I thanked them both and left. Seconds later, I heard Fussy and Roger arguing. Embarrassed, I just walked, not really paying attention, until I found myself at the town's fountain. It's little more than a well, but instead of dipping a bucket into a hole in the ground, the water conveniently comes up and burbles onto a large basin. I sat on the edge, just looking around at the few buildings I could see. One of them was my former school. I wondered if maybe I'd been too hasty in leaving. I wondered what in the world I was doing. I wondered, "Hello, dear, you look lost." I looked up and saw a girl, not much older than me, holding a huge jug. "Oh, sorry." I moved out of what I thought was her way. She giggled, "Oh, don't move on my account. It's nice to take a break from chores." She sat down next to me. "I'm Francie." I didn't know what to say, so I went with, "Hi?" I think she giggled again at my awkwardness. "Are you a student at the school?" "I was." She nodded. "I was too. Did they tell you about the boy who died?" "Yeah, and that it's why it's all learning inside." "Yeah, they told us the same thing. That boy they kept on about died years ago, and apparently he fell. Some say from a cliff, others say it was from a high tree branch, but it was a son of the family that runs the school, so they stopped allowing anyone to leave. Unless you graduate or quit. So I quit." "Really? Me too. So now I work as a domestic. What are you going to do?" "I'm living in a witch's cottage." She stopped and looked at me with eyes wide, mouth open. "You didn't! You did? Wow! You are way braver than me. How's it like living with a real witch?" I don't know. She hasn't been home." "Oh-ho! A domestic for a witch who's not around? Have you looked through her stuff? Have you found her secrets? Oh, how exciting!" And I guess somewhere around there is when I decided that the quiet and peace of the cottage would be far more welcome than these townspeople. Which is when Mouse Eye popped onto my shoulder and whispered, but loudly enough to be heard by Francie, "Mistress beckons." Francie nearly dropped her jug in excitement. "Is that a familiar? I've heard of them." "Oh, yeah, sorry, but I have to go. He's so cute. What's his name?" I paused for a moment, then said, "I don't know if I should say, but I guess I can tell you. It's Mortimer. Mortimer d'Excellence." I started to get up, but then Mouse Eye once again loudly whispered, "If you're going to share my name with someone, you should share my full name." I shot him a look, and he returned an innocent one back. "Mortimer d'Excellence Magnificarius Wiggle Whiskers the Third." I got up quickly as Francie tried repeating what I just said, and almost ran out of the gates. I did manage to slow down on the way back and started to think about storing my new reagents and being ready whenever someone would need a witch's care. I did think to ask Mouse Eye where he'd been off to during my trip to town. "I watched," he responded. "Okay," I said. "Tell me what you saw. All of it." "Must I?" And that is the episode. I hope you liked it. Okay. I think at this point, I'm going to invite us all to do a little breathing and stretching. I certainly need to stretch after that. Okay, so here we go. Deep breath in. And a little stretch. Oh, I heard my back pop. Okay. So I don't know if you heard some of the elements that we talked about prior to what I was looking for. And of course, there's prompts in there as well. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. But yeah, that's where that particular episode ended up, based on all of the bits and pieces, the bits and bobs that I used in order to put it all together. So now I'm just going to, here we go, move over to a few things that I think are kind of cool. So, excuse me, just going to come over here and share my screen. Now there's a lot of stuff here, so I'll just bring it up item by item. So the first one, mouse eyes started out being a representation of receiving things that are far less than hoped for or dreamed of. And which matches up really clearly to everything that I had hoped for in a familiar before I had randomly picked what I got, which was a mouse or a rodent, and then I chose to make it mouse just to make it even more diminutive. I mean, I could have gone with a big rodent, but I went with really, really small because I wanted it to match up with his ability, which seems to be rather small. Unless you write it in differently in future episodes. So that one's kind of fun. So the next, mouse eyes not carrying of things came directly from my lovely lady love, Alicia. She who does not carry things. That is for other people. That is something that she has been doing for a very, very long time. When she would go out shopping with kids, it'd be like, kids, you carry the stuff because I just paid for it. And she didn't carry things. Been that way for a very long time. And so I wanted to include it in because I thought it was a fun little bit. And it just makes mouse eye just that much more useless. So that's why it's in there. Okay, the familiar is probably the single event that launched my story from being more closely hewing to the guidebook to being more about characters and their individual wants and needs. So starting off with Mouse Eye, with his must I? Because it's, first off, it was so close to Mouse Eye. I heard the name Mouse Eye when I was thinking about what should his name be, and then followed immediately by must I? So that's his tagline. And so now I can just refer to it and I can set up situations where he's just brings it up. And so it even adds more into that uselessness. So we're going to have to, find ways to work around that or to highlight it or, to play with it, right? Because in these different episodes, we can build upon these different things. And so Mouse Eye's uselessness is going to be one of them. And I'm really, really glad that I brought the familiar so into the story so quickly, because it really did help move things forward. And I hope that, well, I expect you will find the same when you put it into your story as well. Okay, hi Rannoc. And I mentioned this before, there are only 4 named places in the guidebook: the general store, the tavern, and 2 magical places. So I took it to mean High Rannoc is quite small and run down, with the name either being something someone hoped for the town or an echo of the past, and perhaps even unremembered glory. Now, something that has occurred to me as I have been writing is perhaps with my witch becoming more and more skilled and seeing more and more people, does that translate into more people visiting the town? Will people come? Will High Rannoc, as a result, begin to build up? Will more people come? Will that bring more problems? Will we have banditry because there's more and more people with money coming to have their particular illnesses cared for? What is all this going to mean? And there's a lot of things that we can play about and just sort of, keep in the back of your mind. Just as something occurs to you, you don't have to address it right then and there. You can wait. You can take time. You can let it become part of, many episodes carrying over a long period of time. There is no guidebook here that says that you have to wrap something up or you have to introduce something at some particular point. You choose to do it when you do it. And if you choose not to do it, that's okay too, because it's your story and it's up to you when things happen when. And that includes never. Okay, this last bit. So I tied the curing of Albert Flywheel from the prior episode, right? He of the warty lips being frogified, to a prompt about the old witch, right? So that was the old guy who was musing about like the witch knew her stuff, but how she bitterly complained about all the dumb ways people hurt themselves. And then that was all tied into the gathering of the summoning of the familiar, where the summoning goes really, really, badly because of all of these things that are kind of going together. So we've taken these three things, and they're quite disparate things, and we've combined them together into one, and I think made that particular bit of story, that particular episode, much better because of it. The grouping makes the story more cohesive, and it makes more sense. And we're going to be looking for opportunities within prompts to not necessarily follow the prompt exactly, or to tie one prompt into another prompt, or think about things in a different way, think about things outside the box even, that are outside of the guidebook entirely, just things that occur to you and make sense, and we're going to bring them all in. And again, we're going to see that in future episodes as well. So at this point in the video, I just want to kind of close these 4 episodes into sort of like a single grouping. So we've talked about why I'm using a JSRPG, and I've talked about how I'm using it, and I've talked about the tools and the methods that we're using to generate these things, the mindset, using the guidebook and what's been written prior, and the imagination, all combining together to form up this story. And then, for me anyway, it's using that pantser experience to have the story appear on the page. So this is the last of the nuts and bolts video. And in fact, here, I'm just going to come over to here. So that first bit, so basically talking what I just mentioned. So the question now is, are you inspired? Are you inspired to join along? So one idea, or one thing that you could do because you're inspired, is to go out and get yourself a JSRPG of any title. I've heard from a couple of people that they have been inspired to write, but not necessarily using this particular JSRPG. And that's great and fantastic, and so amazing that you're able to like take this series of videos and then translate it into a different product. And still, you're going to put out your story, and these, the ideas that I have, they're not Apothecaria specific. They are going to apply across anything that you're doing. And so, more power to you. And I'd love to hear your particular experience with that particular product and how things are going. What's your story? Share it, please. Drop me a note. So that's one thing you could be inspired to do. Another thing that you could be inspired to do is to go out and buy your own copy of Apothecaria and then draw your own prompts, and then get the feel for the entire book with all of the mechanisms and all the game mechanics that are just right there, because there are some things that I haven't mentioned yet, and as we hit upon them, I will mention them then. But there is nothing like having the Apothecaria book in front of you. And again, when Alicia and I did it, because shipping is so expensive on a bound copy, we bought the PDF and then had it printed out here. So we do have things in sleeves. And that is immensely helpful to have for our writing, and all of the little details that Anna Blackwell put into the game. It's wonderful to have, and as a resource to catch little details and then put them into your writing, because it just adds that bit of realism to it that I think would be lacking otherwise. That said, if you don't want to go out and do that, and instead you want to just use the prompts that Alicia and I are using to write our story, welcome aboard. As we go forward now through these different episodes, these different videos, I will be sharing at the beginning of the episode what the prompts are, hear what I wrote and my approach to those particular prompts, and then take ideas from mine. I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Send me a note. Let me know that you're doing it, because, you know, it'd be nice to know, but I don't mind if you use them. So you've got that. And then lastly is, if you just enjoy the story and you just enjoy these episodes, you're going to hear them every 2 weeks. And so I look forward to you joining along and watching and having as much fun listening as I have in writing and then relating. And here is where I will mention that the YouTube channel comes up. It's every 2 weeks, and it's just a standard thing. We also have a Patreon, and so if you subscribed into the Patreon, you get access when the video is put up into YouTube, not when it's turned live. And so generally that means you've got 2 weeks before anyone else sees it. So that's kind of maybe a fun way to be a little bit ahead of what everyone else is seeing. Okay, so all that said, let's do this last bit, which is, what were the prompts? What were the prompts for the entirety of week 1? The prologue, there were no prompts. Well, you had the one, right? Just that little bit at the very, very beginning, and it was a screenshot kind of thing. You can see it if you go back to the prompt, the prologue episode. The piece that is from the book is right there, so you can just capture that, and then that's your starting point. But here in week 1, we had prompts. I haven't mentioned what they were yet, but I am now. So here we go, and this is going to be the kind of thing where you're going to maybe grab screenshots, and it's just a list. It's not overly detailed, but I hope you find it useful. The reason I'm keeping it rather light on details and I'm not putting up the screenshots anymore is I do want to be very fair to Blackwell Games and their publishing, and I don't want to give away the farm. You know, I paid for it, but that doesn't mean I get to share it with everybody. So that's why I'm going to be doing it this way, and I hope you understand. Okay, let's go back to that screenshot. Okay, so the prompts for week 1. So first off, the prologue. Again, the prologue, the only prompt is from that little bit from the beginning of the book. And so the cure week, so the ailment was frogified, or basically warts on the lips. We travel to Hero's Hollow, aka the dungeon. And so somewhere in there, the ground gives way, you go down a slide, you wind up in the jail cell, and the pick, or the lock, is easy to pick. Now, this does not mean that it has to be like the ground as you're walking towards Hero's Hollow. It can be inside the dungeon, right? You can get yourself inside there and then have it go, and then you go into like a lower level of the dungeon, right? All up to you, however you choose to do it. We harvested crow coal and skullcap. And I will let you think about maybe what they look like or where they would come from, and then just write it that way. It doesn't have to follow the detail inside the guidebook if you don't have the guidebook to follow. Okay, then we went to Meltwater Lock, and we harvested some smooth croak. That came off frogs. And then we traveled home, brewed the potion. We got paid 20 silver, and we got +2 reputation. And that is all summarized in the prior episode where Albert Flywheel is frogified, right? So look for that one. Okay, so now I'm going to scroll up. So this rest week is the other set of prompts, and that's from today. We traveled to Glimmerwood Grove, that's the forest. Someone reminisces about the old witch, either positive or negative thoughts and opinions, and we heard both in my version. We set up a summoning circle, and we summoned a familiar. And then we harvested. We harvested wild rose, coffee cap, and songberries. And again, use your own personal description or not if you don't want to get detailed on what these things are. And then we travel to High Rannoc, the village. Someone joins me at the Towns' Fountain. For me, this was Francie, and we talked about some stuff. We visit Bits and Bob's, which is the general store, and then we went to the Copper Fox, and this is the tavern where adventurers are available for hire at 10 silver per adventure. They can prevent one location prompt from happening. Okay, so if you want to, take those prompts, take that list of things, let your imagination run wild. Let your imagination run wild, and let's see where you end up. Now, to wrap things all up, the question now is, what happens in spring week 2? Who comes? What ailment do they have? The only thing I'm going to tease you with is you get to find out what happens when our witch is challenged to a game of caber toss by pixies. And that is what we're going to end with. So, the last bit that I want to include here is like, share, subscribe. This would help immensely, in particular, the sharing. If you're not subscribed yet, please do, but please do share and help us to be introduced into people who will find this to be interesting and enlightening. And with that, I'm going to come back here. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. And it's as much a journey for me as I believe it is for you. And so with that, I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, bye for now.